name's Robert Howard Allen, and I was actually born in Calgary and lived in Calgary up until I was 13 years old. And then at that point, we moved northwest of Cochrane onto Jameson Road. And the way we ended up on Jameson Road was my dad actually was involved in a business, and I believe at the time it was, lumber or milling and lumber and logging. And the company actually kind of defaulted, and what he got out of it was a quarter section of land. And pardon me, I think at that time he thought, there was myself and 9 siblings at the time, and he probably thought, maybe this would be a better place to raise a large family. And it certainly was, even though I was 13, I had 2 older siblings, a brother 11 months younger than I am, and of course on down. And I don't think there was one of us that regretted the move, and it was a hard age to move, but it certainly was, it was a wonderful life out there. And even though I only lived out there for from 59 to 65, like I say, it was a wonderful place to be raised, and interesting too. My brother and I had never been much for, the outdoors, and we just embraced hunting and fishing and hiking, and and today I don't hunt. My siblings or my brothers all hunt, but I don't, and I don't fish very much anymore. But I love the hiking and I love the outdoors. Probably I could go back to when I was a toddler, and we lived in the same house from the time I was born until we moved west of Cochrane. And it was in a district called Old Patrick, and it was southwest Calgary. And even though it was part of Calgary, it was kind of on the outskirts of Calgary. And at that time, we had city water, but there was no city sewer, so we had outhouses, which is hard to imagine in the city, but that's the way it was. And we had, at the time, I thought it was a gigantic house. I went back years later just to drive by the neighborhood. Well, it wasn't a gigantic house, it was a small house. And we had also owned the lot next door to it where my mom had her garden. And my mom was always big into gardening and flowers and plants. And so I, as a toddler, I remember the house, the chicken coop in the back, as I was growing up, the big garden, and the lady that lived next door to us was from, oh golly, well, they were European anyways. I can't remember the country now. Anyways, and Mrs. Varga was her name, and I just remember as a toddler going over to visit Mrs. Varga. That was what I wanted to do, was go and see Mrs. Varga. It changed big time, because in Calgary, of course, you had your circle of friends, and when you're 12, 13 years old, friends are important to you, and all of a sudden, we're packing the car and we're heading west, and you're kind of leaving your friends, even though we still saw them periodically after we moved. But it was a big change. But like I say, I don't remember any of us regretting it, and it was just, one of them things we just embraced when we did it, And maybe it was, my mom's doing too. My mom was a kind of a rock solid person. My dad was very easygoing and quiet, and, he would never raise his voice. That's just the way he was. My mom was a disciplinarian, but she was rock solid and would just, kind of prepare you for everything you did. And that pretty much through our whole life was the way my mom was. We had a few close friends that we would see, and once they started driving, got to be 16 years old, they would come out and visit us. But you really, it's kind of like as life moves on, you make new friends, and then you leave home and, you go to college or whatever the case is, and you make new friends again, and then you go into the workforce and you make new friends again. So it's kind of an evolving thing. And I mean, even today, I kind of sit back and and I hardly ever hear or see my high school buddies, but once in a while you might hear from one of them. But you often wonder, well, I wonder what happened to them or what they're doing today. But you get to the point where you got a new circle of friends, and then now you got your family and your grandchildren, your children and your grandchildren. And yeah, and just kind of seems to work that way for everybody.